everybody. Welcome to the Gets to Fail. I'm Brooklyn Calloway, owner of Ricky Lynn's Bungalow, and today I am interviewing Lee Gonzales with La Finca Coffee and Bakery, one of my favorite places, and it's quickly becoming a Frisco staple. I can't say enough good things about La Finca Coffee and Bakery, but I will tell you this. Walking down there for one of their famous omelets, Italian sandwich, or those freaking tarts that I cannot get enough of because they're so delicious. It smells like coffee and bakery. There is not a better combination when you go in there. And going by when you're roasting, it's amazing. So you'll all have to check it out at the corner of Main and South County in the new patios development bottom floor. When the weather gets nice, you'll have outdoor seating. It's going to be amazing. So you'll have to check him out. But Lee, I'm very excited to have you. I thank you for being here. And I want you to take it away and tell us about your background and how you became who you are today and what you're doing and how the concept came about. Just talk to the other entrepreneurs that are listening and tell us your story.
Well, first of all, Brooklyn, thank you for the generous introduction. I appreciate the comments and the compliments, and we're excited to be part of Frisco. A little bit about our background, we actually been around Frisco for a long time. My wife grew up in Frisco since mid 80s, and I moved here late 90s. So we've been around for a long time, and Frisco is pretty much home for both of us. And ever since, late 2010, around 2010, we actually took a journey to Mexico, and we had an opportunity to do a career change, and that's where our journey for entrepreneurship started. I left a corporate job at Frito-Lay to go do missionary work on the Pacific coast of Mexico. I know that's a tough challenge, have to go live on the beach, but we made that sacrifice and we spent 10 years on the Pacific coast of Mexico on the beach. So it was a great time, great experience. And that's where kind of this whole journey started for us in entrepreneurship and to leading us to where we're at today.
Wow. Okay. So when you say you journeyed to Mexico, how does that translate to creating, roasting coffee and opening a bakery? Where did those skills and background, have you always done that, or where did that come from?
Now that's an interesting story. So when people ask me, well, how did I start doing coffee? How do we start doing bakery? I would tell people, don't follow my path, because my path probably isn't the easiest or the most logical. So taking you back a couple of years before we went to Mexico, we were part of a small group of Hope Fellowship is our local church where we go here. We were as part of a home group where we weren't really coffee drinkers or anything, but one of the things in that home group would always happen is that a pot of coffee was made, and it was just a conversation that just that building of community that was really surrounded around a cup of coffee. And so we just started kind of getting a taste of drinking coffee. That kind of led us to buying a coffee maker at home, but we were very basic, simple coffee drinkers. And so you roll that forward a couple of years, we go to Mexico, and we're in Mexico, and it was just hard to find a great cup of coffee. So we suffered for about 2 or 3 years without really having any good coffee. Like coffee primarily is instant coffee in Mexico. So just not that great, and it wasn't that fun. So I started having coffee withdrawals in Mexico, and so that was kind of the start of how do we get great coffee was the first thing. So that was the first thing that really led us there. But relationships are more than anything else, and I think, Brooklyn, you probably know this along the way in your journey as well. You start meeting people, and people kind of become the key to success for all of us. I think we learn from each other. We meeting the right people can sometimes open up the right doors and leads to other opportunities. And that's really what happened to us in Mexico. As I mentioned, we went to do missionary work in Mexico. We did missionary work for, like you said, for about a little over 9 years in Mexico. And one of the things we started doing, we had a big building that we were only using maybe a third of the space, and we had a lot of empty space, and we started thinking about what do we do with the remaining space. And so the combination of looking for great coffee and trying to, the whole idea of seeing a need for a place in the community for people to gather, build the relationships, going back to like what I told you originally in that small group where that relationship was built around a cup of coffee. And so that's where the first idea came about to opening up a coffee place. So that was kind of the start of it.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is your experience and showed you that you illuminated the fact that you there was a need or a hole that needed to be filled. Or I like to say a hole in the community that needed to be filled, and that was good coffee. Instant wasn't going to cut it. You were suffering through that, and then you had this opportunity in this extra space that you weren't using, and you had the idea. And I really feel like so many times seeing the need, having the opportunity, and having the idea is the trifecta. That triangle is almost what like goes into that. Have you ever seen National Treasure with Nicolas Cage? Have you ever seen that movie?
Exact,
Yeah, you
exactly,
know, he has
Brooklyn.
that he has that pipe and he puts it in and it unlocks something. That need, opportunity, and idea unlocks entrepreneurship. That's the same commonality that I hear, but you put it in such great words that you found the need, you had the opportunity, and you had that idea had been planted slowly and kept coming back up over time. So I really
And
like that.
yeah, and I would add one more piece that I haven't mentioned yet is that laid out the scenario, the opportunity, and as we started thinking about, usually most great ideas start with solving a problem. We had a problem as personal problem was where do I get coffee from? A second problem, not necessarily a problem, but an opportunity was what do we do with this idle space? And then a third one we saw is this we saw a lacking in the community of a place where people could just really gather, adopt as kind of their home. And so as we started looking at those opportunities, this is where this came about. And then the fourth piece that I haven't mentioned yet is these relationships. We met a gentleman. His name was Tom Lonsdale. He was in the city of Mazatlan, another Pacific coastal area in Mexico, a little north of us, who was running a couple of coffee shops in Mazatlan. And we, through a common acquaintances, common people we knew, I was introduced to him. And so this is where I tell you, probably not the smartest way to start a business, but I went and took a week-long crash course on how to run a coffee shop. And prior to this, I had never.
1 week crash course.
1 week, 5 days, Monday through Friday. We showed up, spent Monday through Friday with him and his staff. And I'll give you some background. My background isn't restaurant, food business, hospitality. I actually had an accounting degree. I worked in accounting for a while, and then I actually worked in corporate finance for the most part. And it's all of a sudden, first of all, going to Mexico doing missionary work, that's another whole story, how that came about. But as we were there, this opportunity came along. I met Tom and Heidi, his wife, who was running this great place in Mazatlan. And so they were generous with this, I'll tell you. And this is where I tell you about relationships. I tell them to this day, we wouldn't be where we were at if it wasn't for them. They spent 5 days, took a chance on these guys with no experience, and hey, we'll teach you what we know. And they shared suppliers, recipes. They did so much for us, and it was one of those things is that they advanced us quite a bit. I think without them, we would have struggled a lot more. It would have taken us a lot longer to get started, and they were just such help and the generosity. And that's something implemented. Seeing that in them that's why we've always had this idea: if we can help anybody, we will. We know people have helped us to get to where we're at now. And so that was really the 5-day crash course, how to run a coffee shop. And that was the start of this journey for us.
Wow. Okay, so something that you just said there is basically, in a nutshell, you were saying, um, you said that your great ideas start with solving a problem, and you were looking for how to fill a vacant space. You had the idea, you had the opportunity in the vacant space. You there was a need in the community, and then your fourth component was relationship. But the whole scenario is that you had the guts to fail at something. You're like, well, here's a way to solve this problem. It doesn't work out fine. But I really think that you mitigate the risk by having good intentions. And your intention was to have a place where people in the community could fellowship, uh, you know, not to use the buzzword since we both go to Hope
Yeah.
Fellowship, but to be able to be a place for gathering people and a place where they felt comfortable to commune and come together. And so your intention wasn't, we're going to get rich off this concept. From what I'm hearing, your intention was to create a place that was needed in your community for people to come and gather. And since you were there on a mission, you were missionaries, that was in your heart. And I think when your intentions are to provide, you know, something amazing for your community, success follows that, no matter if it was a freaking 5 day crash course. Because look at where you're at today and how much you've learned along the way. So you probably have a lot to say now. So I'm going to hand it back over to you, but I really love how you had the guts to fail, but it wasn't that you were trying to be a bazillionaire. You were trying to create something in the community that was needed. And so that intention really drives success for me. And when people are just trying to make a dollar and not a difference, they, I see that they actually do fail. They had the guts to fail, but then they end up failing, and then people like you end up succeeding.
Yeah. Well, my number one advice to anyone is says if you ever want to start a business, don't start a business based on the decision of how much money you can make, because we all know is that making money is, I mean, money is great. We all need money. We all have needs, but it doesn't bring happiness. And so you all of a sudden you start really thinking about one of the biggest keys I personally think to success ends up being is having that initiative, curiosity, and then it takes a lot of drive and passion, because when you're starting a business, it can be very demanding. It could be a struggle. There can be hard times, and if you're not really passionate about what you're doing, it's so easy to give up, not see it through, and not be willing to make the sacrifice necessary. Because I think entrepreneurship is very exciting, and it's portrayed as very exciting. It can be, but it is a lot of hard work. And so we learned that, and if you ask my wife, Patricia, she'll say maybe sometimes the risks have been more than maybe we would have wanted to. But give you an idea, when we went to Mexico, in order to get ready to go, well, one of the things we ended up having to do, we put our home for sale to move to Mexico, and timing was perfect. We put our home for sale during the mortgage crisis that happened back in, what was it, 2008.
Yep.
And so trying to sell a house during a mortgage crisis to go to Mexico was very interesting and fun. But we got through that. That was the first obstacle. We got to Mexico. We faced plenty of obstacles, and we lived through a lot of obstacles that, transition to another country. We survived. I'd say survived, it wasn't, but we went through 2 hurricanes. We went through a couple of earthquakes. We experienced a lot of interesting stories. I could tell you story after story in Mexico. We started a business where all of a sudden, we take I took a pension out of Frito-Lay, and instead of leaving as a pension, invested in a business. Now, some people might not say wisest advice, but that was the seed money to get us started in this business venture that we did. And it's been one risk after another, and we can roll forward into most recently when we were starting this business, La Finca here in Frisco. We signed a lease in 2019, and guess what happens early 2020? Well, COVID, right in the middle of construction and starting a new business. So we seem to have found obstacles along the way, and if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're not focused about what you're doing, those obstacles can sure be distractions and give you every reason to quit, not move forward, or not make it. And so definitely a passion, and just a desire, and having that initiative to move forward and be sold on your idea and loving what you do.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let's do this. Tell me about Yeah, that would must have been really hard when 2020 happened. I It's hard enough for the existing small businesses, but for one that was in the middle of construction and building and all these hopes, and this was going to be our open date, and this is all these people gathering, and now we're all wearing masks, and this wasn't part of the plan, and you can't see each other's faces, and you're like, how am I going to build a relationship? What has been one of the challenges owning a coffee shop during COVID that maybe somebody else wouldn't really think about or notice or understand?
I just think, challenges. We all know starting a business is hard to begin with, no matter when you start a business. The beginning is always the most difficult time. As you're just getting, going and just really have beginning is very critical. It's very demanding of time, money, and every other way. And so you throw in a wrinkle of something like COVID and the uncertainty, because I remember when we were doing construction, we said, well, hopefully by the time construction's over with, COVID will be over with. So everybody's thinking, oh, it's February, March. By summer, COVID will be gone, things will be great, and everything will be normal. Well, guess, here we are, January of 2021, and we're still in the midst of it. And so I think there's a lot of, COVID is one of them, but just along the way is the uncertainty, not really knowing what's next, how long things are going to be. And that can be if it's a pandemic or if it's a, shortage of labor, anything, right? A challenge that you endure in a business. And so learning how to manage one, I think challenges is definitely very important because they come along the way. And this is just the one we're living in right now. And I think what you have to, one of the keys that I always say is don't get too high on your highs and don't get too lows on your lows. Because we can sit here and be in a big struggle, and the mind is very powerful. And all of a sudden we get so focused in on the challenge and the problem and everything else that we can't see through to the other side. And we can't see through to the side, that's where you start losing hope, you start losing, desire, you start losing focus, and that initiative, that desire, everything starts fading and going away. And so I think you always have to, one, not lose hope and not lose focus on why you're doing what you're doing. And vice versa, when you have that great week, I will tell you, for us last week was our best week since we've opened. But you can't also be too high either and just say, okay, we got it made. No, you got to keep it. And so don't get too high, don't get too low. Stay focused. Know what your purpose is. Know what your objective is, and know where you're trying to reach. Because I always tell people the goal isn't, how much I sell this week. That's so, when we're so short-term focused, and then everything that happens today, it drives our mindset, drives our the way we feel and our emotions, and we have to learn how to be focused on where am I going and what am I doing to get there. And if you have a plan, the likelihood of getting there is much higher than when you're letting the day-to-days of highs and lows drive how you feel and make your decisions.
Yeah. Wow, that is so important. I know that y'all are plugged into your church community. Talk to me about how, having faith is a big thing. And when you say don't let your highs be too high and your lows be too low, I'm a faith-based business as well, and I truly believe that when things get difficult, I just know that there's somebody bigger out there controlling the things, and it happened for a reason and all of that. Tell me about your church community and how being plugged into that and your community has helped you has any of that helped having those relationships in your community and that collaboration and stuff? How has that helped, mitigate your risk opening a business and through the pandemic specifically?
Yeah, well, I truly believe is that having people around you is important. When it goes back to is whenever we think we're strong enough on our own or smart enough or anything else, I mean, we're fooling ourselves. We're never going to know everything. We're never going to understand everything, and we're never going to be able to do everything on our own. And as I've even mentioned to you already, is having, the Tom and Heidi who I met in Mazatlan who taught us. Well, that relationship was through a church relationship in Mexico that we built. And, like-minded people, when I say they were generous to us, it's people that were generous to us. And all along the way, I can tell you, as we saw, God's hand in what we did in critical points and times of how we got to where we are now. You can sit here and say it's coincidence or it just, oh, we got lucky. I can tell you, I by no means ever believe it was coincident lucky. It's being ordained times that are appointed for, people ordained to be a part of your life at certain points of time that were very helpful in getting us to where we are now. And sometimes it was just as simple as having somebody encourage you, as somebody is lending a hand. It's people being at the right point. And we've seen it time and time again. We saw it in Mexico. We saw it even coming back here. When I mentioned to you when we were getting ready to start here, we were making a transition from out of the country to here. We didn't just come and, oh, we're already living here and starting this business and we were established. We were trying to get established back in the U.S. We were trying to start a business, and then we had a pandemic that happened along the way. But I will tell you just simple things such as when I met your husband, Matt, to first inquire about leasing here. Just the connections there right away. You guys know your neighbors, Aaron and Jeanette, and then all of a sudden, people through connections lined up the right people who helped us be successful. And one thing led to that. I can, name you how those led to meeting other people, such as Donnie and other people, and all along the way. Is that you can sit here and say, oh, you just got lucky. No, you didn't get lucky. Is that I believe that God has a hand in what we're doing. But at the same time, it's not only when we receive that benefit or we're on the receiving end, but that's for us to also be on the giving end, is that you never know who you're going to make a difference, whose life you're going to make a difference in, who you can be a part of being of their success as well. And so we've seen the faith part is played a role all along the way. And I can tell you there were times where we weren't sure what we were going to do. When we had to make decisions, from going to Mexico, trying to sell a house during a mortgage crisis to moving back. And all of a sudden I can tell you the story, how we sold our coffee shop in Mexico, how we sold our house, and things changed in a 5-month time period. We found ourselves from being in Mexico, being back in Frisco, and by no means we didn't have our business for sale. We had somebody unsolicited come and offer to buy the business, but timing is everything. With our kids back in the U.S. going to college, had a mother-in-law who was already elderly that my wife had been away with for quite a few years, that hadn't really had time to spend with her, for just having a desire to maybe start coming back, being back in Frisco, and all of a sudden for things to change in 5 months with it. And I can sit here and tell you it was only God, because there was nothing we could do. We've seen businesses where we were living go for sale for years, never sell, and just get liquidated or just shut down. We saw houses for sale 2, 3, 4, 5 years because it wasn't the average person couldn't afford. These weren't exorbitant houses, but the standard of living in Mexico is much different than what we experience here. And so to have just amazing things happen on things that we didn't see and happen so quickly, to get in here and finding a place to open a business, even though there was a challenge and a delay. But just the fact that we're here today, I mean, it's just, I could sit here and give you story after story how faith plays a role, God's hand plays a role, but the way it happens is, for the most part, we've seen is through people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he works through people. And I love how you said that the connections, nothing was coincidence, nothing was good luck. Um, my uncle said that there is no such thing as luck. He was a professor at the Air Force Academy. And so he's very knowledgeable, very rigid. He said there's no such thing as luck. Luck is when preparedness meets opportunity. And so if you have go along in your life building relationships, which we've said about 7 or 8 times now, putting little marks every time you say because it's important. It's so important, and there's a theme throughout every Vetstabelle interview, and yours is definitely relationships, fellowship, gathering, community, um, connections, and people. And so I love that that is the crux of your business. It's who you do it for. It's who has helped you build your business, and what that relationship building in your heart is what gave you the idea to do it. And, that's where the seed was planted. And you're very good with people. And I know that everybody that walks in, you say bye to them. You know their eyeballs now by their mask. You're really good. You know who everyone is, despite the fact that we're all mask robbers. And it's just really refreshing. It is a soft place to land, and not only that, it's a great place to eat. So let me ask you about that really quick. We have about 5 more minutes. You told me about the coffee, and in your 5-day crash course, you didn't say that that came with any bakery knowledge. So I'm guessing that that was yet another relationship that you had that taught you that, whether it was a grandma or something. But where did that side of your business come from? And tell us about maybe a little bit different question. What's next for La Finca Coffee Bakery?
So for the few minutes remaining, I'll just go quickly. The baking is just one of those things. Is when a challenge presents itself, what do? Either you fold or you get through it and get past it, and you actually come out better. And that's what happened with bacon. When we first opened up, we decided we were going to have a couple of cakes, some pastries. We were going to have some things to sell at our shop. Well, the lady who was making those for us, she did it for a couple of months. All of a sudden, she stopped showing up. So all of a sudden, we had no goods to sell. And so Patricia, my wife, she's amazing. And she was like, okay, well, let me see what I can do. And so she kind of whips up some things and replaces basically the cakes that the lady's making. And so that was the first start. Okay, well, let's just start making out of a need. The lady stopped providing for us. She stopped showing up. We started making it. So, and then from there it became, well, can we do one more thing? And we started adding this thing, and can we do this? And can we do that? Can we start making bread for our sandwiches? Can we start doing those things? And so all of a sudden we go from making 2 cakes and a pie to making a whole variety of things. And this is Patricia, same thing. Not a background. She wasn't a baker. She never did this commercially, just kind of at home, for just family. And all of a sudden she grew into this role of baking, and to where now you see there's, tarts, there's pies, there's breads, there's cinnamon rolls, there's cakes, and, all the variety of things. And that's just the surface of where we're going with all this. And so it was just another one of those opportunities. Another one, a couple of years into our previous coffee shop in Mexico, we had a lot of customers saying, hey, we like what you have. We want to taste it, but we're looking for food. In Mexico, breakfast is a big deal. So all of a sudden we started seeing customers walk away. Well, what do you do? Find an opportunity. So we decided, well, let's start serving a little breakfast. Well, before we know it, 6 months later, our breakfast business is booming. And we're the top rated breakfast place in town. We're, highly rated in TripAdvisor, and really only serving a breakfast menu for the most part, and just another opportunity. And so all along the way, it's just as opportunities that have come about, learning to take advantage of, and, how to make a business out of it. And so that's how we grew from being a coffee bar to roasting coffee to being a bakery and to doing food. And so that kind of leads in. And so you ask, the next question is, so what's next? And really we have several goals. We're just touching the surface of what we're doing now. Bakery wise, we want the neighborhood and those even in Frisco, when you're on your way home or you need some bread to take home, you can come in, pick up your bread, take it home. And so we're about to expand all our breads and baked items and do a lot more for you to enjoy in your home, to go loaves of breads, things that you need to, prep at home. You have a gathering at home with your family, and do you need some dessert or you need something for a meal? We want to be your bakery, your dessert place for you to take home. And then the next thing is coffee. We're going to start doing some coffee subscriptions where we can mail coffee to your home, supply bags of coffee for your home. this is in addition to what we're really doing right now. So we're working on some coffee subscriptions. And then food wise, there's a couple of things we have in the works. I can't mention a couple of them yet because we're still working through them. But one of the things we're doing regularly is weekend specials, bring in authentic Mexican meals, things we learned while we were in Mexico, and serving those on Friday and Saturday evenings here. We stay a little open a little later till 8. This weekend, for example, we have homemade tamales. We do, last week we had homemade chile rellenos. We've done enchiladas. We've done street tacos. We've done a lot of things. And so just to bring things that we learned during our time in Mexico to Frisco. And the other thing is just what we're all about, and you heard it throughout this podcast about relationships, about gatherings, and so forth. We don't want to use the cliche. It's about community. Most coffee shops saying how we're building a community, and what we want to be is that's really what it is. Is if you think about our location, we're literally probably where the front desk, the front counter was of Double Dip, and if everybody remember, that was a staple here in Frisco, was a gathering spot that was on this location. And what we really want to do is if we can be that next spot for Frisco to say, this is our spot, this is where we gather, this is where we build community. And that's really what we want to see. As we built community relationships that have been important to us, we want to facilitate that for others. And so if this is a place, Brooklyn, that you need to have a meet and meet a friend or plan your future business or opportunities or your projects you're doing, that you have that space, that if you want to come and, hang out with Matt, that you have that space. That if you
Okay,
need
well, I think we oh, the connection lost just a little bit, but we are so happy to have you, and you are definitely a place to build community. You are the place to gather. You are the replacement to the Double Dip that people wanted so badly. And I love that you say where your front counter is. It is very much where the drive-thru was for Double Dip. You are like right there. I know. I taught here, and I went through the Double Dip drive-thru all the time after school. So, man, that is a good point that I had not thought of before, but I really like that. And your front counter is right on the space where the front counter of there, the Double Dip would have been. So that brings back memories, and that should be comforting to our community that we have someone like you that has come into our community and come back to the United States to bring something like that. And I do really want to God could have facilitated that. And you'll never replace Double Dip, but you are the great next step and the next thing for people to cling on to and have a soft place to land and a warm smile and greeting when they get there, and excellent food and coffee. So I look forward to that. I can't believe you have tamales because I really want to come over and get them now. But I love it. Bakery, what's next? Coffee and food ideas that you can't reveal quite yet. So thank you very much, Lee. I'll let you get back to your amazing space there, and I'll probably be down there later for lunch. I thank you so much for being here, and I'll see everyone else on the Guts to Fail next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooklyn.